Welcome to Ask the Security Guy. I'm Holly Magnuson, and this is episode number 67, pre-recorded for April 2021. Once again, I am joined by Shawn Corman. Hello, Shawn. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Enjoying the weather here in Southern California, and
It is a beautiful day today.
it is. It's March and it's in the 70s. I love that.
Yeah, I can definitely enjoy that. I was talking to someone in Denver this morning who was looking out at more snow. So,
Well, where I'm from, it's also still snowy. So
yeah, well, that's how it is. As I said, we are pre-recording this episode. So the different things we talk about today, if you have questions about those, feel free to email us at iso@apu.edu. Also, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so that you know when we go live. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and kind of introduce this topic today. We're going to talk about your information and what information do you have out in the world, and as we like to say, in the wild. We recently had a coworker kind of question some things that he had found. So, Shawn, what's the best way for me to find out what information is out there in the internet about me?
well, that's definitely a loaded question. And the most common answer is Google it.
Mm-hmm.
So Google's a very powerful, very advanced search engine, and they know a lot about a lot of people. And if you have an Android phone, or if you use any Google services or a Gmail account, they know a lot more about you than you may like to really think about. So that's another conversation. Um, but as you mentioned, Holly, employee raised it to us as what level of exposure do people have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know we've talked about this before, and I know we've done entire shows on this, but I thought it was a good time to really to revisit this because there's really a lot of resources now, and the number of resources and the ways you can find yourself online have grown since we last talked. Even though it was a year ago, maybe.
I think it's been a little longer than that. Time flies when you're having fun.
Well, we've been doing this for a little bit.
Yeah.
So as we talk about that, is how do we know what information about us is out in the world, in the ether, so to speak? And I had a conversation just not too long ago with someone that said, well, I don't have any online accounts and I keep all of my stuff on paper, so I'm not online. So I did a quick search. And I was like, oh, look, is this you? Yeah, needless to say, they weren't real happy. Kind of burst that bubble. But what I realized in our last conversation about this is, when we talk about the idea of Google myself, that's a great place to start. And I would also say there are other search engines out there. So, for instance, there's DuckDuckGo. I think there's a few random other ones out there. Yahoo,
Bing,
and they produce different results. So bear that in mind. So what I'm getting at there is use multiple search engines. So to search yourself, because they will produce different results from different places. Google, as much as they try to be all-knowing and omnipotent, or not. Well, I guess my opinion and theirs may vary on that point, but the fact of the matter is you're going to get different results. Another thing to look at is different online databases. So there are breach databases. There's the Have I Been Pwned database to sort to see if you're on a breach record or anything like that, or your email address is, along with your associated password, of course. But there's different databases out there that you can look for. So those include county records. If you ever purchased a home, Social Security Administration, you can search around there. But different online resources, local, county, state, even some federal databases you can look at and do some name searches for yourself. Some of this stuff has actually been used fairly successfully for genealogy research.
Hmm. Yeah.
So you may want to think about some of those resources as well to see what the genealogy tools can pull up on you and then your associations or your family,
Hmm.
because they also the genealogy tools actually do a much deeper dive into the same resources, but they just do it in an automated way, and it's pretty good. So there's a bunch of them out there. I won't recommend one over the other
Right.
because they all have their niche. But I would encourage you. You know, most of them have free trials. Take them for a spin. See what they pull up for you. Um, Another thing, of course, we would be remiss not to mention social media.
Yeah. Oh, definitely search yourself in social media.
Yeah. So we have the usual suspects with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and whatever else. But there are a lot more social media outlets out there today than there were even a
Yeah.
year ago.
Hmm.
Another a popular one is Discord.
Yep.
It has seen a lot of use. There's Mayway. Rumble is like a YouTube replacement or
Mhm.
competitor. There's Gab.com and what's another one? Parlor is back up and
Oh, is
online.
it back up in line? I knew they had some issues a while back.
Yeah, they got knocked off by people who didn't like them very much, and so but they're back in action and being as maligned as ever. Um, but again, what was another one? Telegram is
Yeah.
another one. So there's a lot of different social media outlets out there, and not well, almost none of them require any type of identity verification. So let's pick on Facebook for a minute. Holly,
Our
how
favorite.
many people have you known over the last 5 years who have all of a sudden had new Facebook accounts and are seeking to add you as a friend?
Yes, way too many. And yeah, I wanted to do an episode on the difference between being hacked and being spoofed, but that's another story. But yeah, that's an excellent example.
Yeah. So, for instance, I mean, your grandma all of a sudden, she has two accounts,
Hmm.
and she's asking you, sending you friend requests from her new account. And it looks like her. The profile picture is right, the banner is right, the
Hmm.
bio info is right, because nobody ever helped grandma set up her account and lock it down.
Right.
It's all out there in the breeze.
Hmm.
So those are things that when you search around, you may be surprised what you find.
Right.
Um, and it's always a good word for caution and be careful what you wish for. You just may find it.
Well, I think I told you the story about searching for my deceased, my dad who's been gone for, over 25 years, and I found 8 of the 9 numbers of his Social Security number, just different Google searches and stuff. I stopped searching because I didn't wanna find number 9.
Well, and so that's a great point. When I was in college, one of the big deals in college was to have your own web page.
Mhm.
And now, I'm obviously an alumni. I have been for over 20 years. Um, but up until probably, I don't know, I was able to find some of my files in a directory I couldn't get authenticated to anymore because I actually didn't have an account I could log into. But the web server had still been running for years that had a lot of those old student web pages on it.
Mhm.
Well, people had other files stored on there too, thinking, oh, it's easy to access. Well, they had files with their personal information, photocopies of their driver's license, photocopies of their social security cards, because at the time, security wasn't that big of a risk as it is today. So they weren't really thinking about the implications
Mhm.
of what we're doing or the fact that, 20 years later, it still might be there.
Right.
Um, so if you have an affiliation with academia that had some kind of, public face that you could, publish your own stuff on, be very careful about what's out there and
Yeah.
what files you have stored there or what's visible. Another thing that's common is resumes
Mhm.
or CVs even,
Yeah.
which have a tremendous amount of information about you. In fact, a CV even more because it's a more complete record. Um, so again, be thoughtful about the fact that who all do you want to be able to see that information?
Yeah.
Um, this day and age, it's just not safe. It's not friendly, and there are better ways to share that information than just hanging something off an old public web page.
Yeah, that's a good point. Would you suggest, like I've gone to a couple of different colleges in my lifetime, going back to their websites and using their search and see if I find myself at all?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I've been an adjunct faculty member. I've been
Mhm.
a student, obviously, in a number of places. So for me, yes, I do go back and I search for myself on their sites.
Mhm.
Um, I search for myself on company directories in places I used to work
Yep.
because I even found a record of myself in an old job that I haven't worked at in a very long
Wow.
time. Yeah, but they had a reference to me on their website still because, well, nobody had updated that web page in a while, and it was just sort of hanging out there. Now Google found it. It wasn't linked on any of their current web pages, but it was still available for indexing.
Mhm.
So that I mean, you find stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point. Um, any other sources that we need to be checking out?
sure, court records.
Court records? Yeah.
Um, LA, any county court will have, well, not any. There are actually still some courthouses that don't have online records. But even those, you can go. They do have electronic records. You can go to the clerk's office, the county clerk's office, and ask for a copy of your information, and you can see what they have on file for you.
Mm.
Um, it may be marriage or birth certificates or parking tickets or speeding violations. It depends on whatever you've done or what actions you've taken that may have found yourself on some form of public record. Um, Most commonly is a home deed.
Mm.
I don't know if you've ever purchased a home, your name is on a public record somewhere
Yep.
and it's searchable. So I mean, your information is out there in a variety of ways and a variety of formats. So it's always worthwhile to know where and what is out there. You may not be able to change the visibility of it, but as
That's
long
what
as you know what's there, you can take steps proactively to protect yourself from identity theft or other kinds of harm. Um, and then I'd say the last two that I would want to talk about is run a credit report on yourself.
right.
I mean, it's free. You can do it once a year for free, and there are services that you can pay for that monitor it real time and alert you and do all that if you're interested. If you've ever been part of a breach notification, you have a credit protection and monitoring service available to you, usually for a year.
Mhm.
So if you ever get those letters, take advantage of it.
Yeah,
Use the
definitely.
service. It's quite helpful. They will try to upsell you on their services. You don't have to, but their basic services are pretty good.
Mhm.
So I mean, I would just use that. But monitor your credit reports,
Yeah.
um, and it's free. It's free to go log in at any of the three bureaus and real time take a look at your stuff anytime you want. Actually, getting a downloaded copy, a formal downloaded copy, that's where you get limited to one a year. But it's also free to put on a credit freeze
Mhm.
on all of your stuff. Now, I'll give you an example. I was in the middle of negotiating with one of the credit card companies I work with, and they said, "Well, Mr. Cornwell, we can't pull your credit." I said, "Oh, you're right. You can't. Which bureaus do you want open?" "What do you mean?" "Well, there are three. I'm not opening them all up. Which two are you going to use? Because I know you're going to use two of the three." So the person I was speaking with had to put me on hold to go get that question answered. And she
That's
came back
awesome.
and she told me, these two. So I logged, right on the phone with her. I logged into those two and put a temporary thaw on my credit, real time, and
Mhm.
poof, she was able to pull it, and I locked it back down. And or you can set them on time delay. You could say, leave this open for 24 hours,
Yeah.
or for 3 days if you want. So there's ways to really limit your exposure. The nice thing about a credit freeze, though, is nobody can open up a new financial account in your name when it's frozen like that. So it doesn't matter if they have your social or all of the information they would need to open an account in your name or steal your identity. If a credit check is a requirement of whatever process they're trying to execute, they're stuck.
Yep.
And that is that's 100 pounds of prevention right there.
Yeah. So,
And I guess the last one I would throw out there would be a background check company.
hmm.
And some of these are pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
They're online. One of the ones, and I'm not endorsing this company. I'll tell you, I've used it a couple times. Is instantcheckmate.com as an example. There are a bunch of them out
Hmm.
there, and they're all. If you go onto the site, they're all offering like $1.99 for a basic background check, or $11.99, and they'll peruse all the social media, or $13.99, and they'll do X number of things. Um, they're not bad. They give you some visibility, and they will also show you what is available for a standard background check that's run on you by an employer.
Mm.
So they'll show you criminal records. They'll show you any other things that may be tied to your name. Because think about it, in the case of identity theft, somebody could go out there and have an entire rap sheet
Yeah.
in your name. It's happened. It's not uncommon or unheard of. So if you go out and you pay for the nominal fee for one of these services, and you find out that, oh, by the way, you've got a DUI 3 states over, um, you've got a problem that
Yep.
you need to solve. Um,
Yep.
but it's better to know about it and be
Hmm.
able to attack that problem than for it to bite you when you're in the middle of another process.
Yeah.
Because Holly and I have heard just way too many stories of kids losing scholarships, of people losing employment opportunities,
Yep.
of home loans, tanking because of stuff people didn't know about.
Yep.
But all of them were tied to cases of identity theft.
Hmm.
Child identity theft is still a big deal.
Yeah.
It is still out there. It is very prevalent. You won't hear much about it in the news because they don't like to talk about it. But child identity theft is a big deal. And people who are deceased, the dead still vote. The dead still open credit card accounts and bank accounts and buy houses, and they do all kinds of things. I mean, for being dead, they're really active.
Yeah.
Um, so and I know that's a bit of macabre humor, but at the end of the day, from an estate planning standpoint, if you have a deceased loved one or you're doing estate planning for yourself, one of the things that needs to be done is you need to make sure that your identity is locked down when you
Mm.
pass.
Yep.
So that means social media, that means the Social Security Administration, that means the credit bureaus. I mean, there are a series of steps that you can take for someone who's passed to make sure that they don't keep doing stuff. Um, because I don't know, I don't know about y'all, but I kind of feel like it's a violation of their memory.
Yeah. It's kind of there's a special place for those people. And with that, we will move on. Um, so as our time's winding down, Shawn, um, what's the one thing you want people to take away from today?
This is a regular process.
Hmm.
Um, you need to be doing this at least 3 or 4 times a year. You could do it on a quarterly basis if it makes you feel better. Pick your schedule. But this is not a once and done kind of thing.
Mm-mm.
The technology moves rapidly, and the amount of information about all of us that is available online is growing rapidly.
Yeah.
If you think about it, go back to the Facebook breach from several years ago, where the Cambridge Analytica. There was a lot of information about people that was not necessarily, considered P2 data, or personally identifiable information, but it's still information that you may not want publicly shared.
Right.
Well, when you think about it, Google, Facebook, Twitter, pretty much any free service out there, they're not free. When you sign up for these services, you pay, all right. You're paying in advertising that you have to watch, and you're paying for privacy.
Mm-hmm.
With your privacy, more accurately.
Right.
You're allowing these companies to use and peruse your data, all your comments, your reactions, your emotions, the products you're interested in. What Google and Facebook and these and other advertisers know about you, if you were really to unpack it, would mortify most people.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to be kind of ambivalent towards this, but I think it's one thing when you use these services and you know what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
versus just not knowing.
Right. You make a choice to use Facebook or not to use Facebook, but knowing
Exactly.
what they're doing.
So, for instance, if you had the Facebook app on your phone, by default, you have given Facebook access to monitor a lot of other stuff that's going on in your phone.
Mm-hmm.
By the fact that you installed it, you gave them permission. It's in their terms of use. Go read it. If you really want to not sleep ever again, start reading the terms of use for Google services, or Facebook, or Twitter, or any other service out there that's free. The terms of use will make sure that you have a permanent case of insomnia for the next 30 years. You would like to think that the terms of use would put you to sleep. Not the case. But anyway, I want to put a shout out to our, to the APU employee who raised this topic for us, and
Mm-hmm.
we really appreciate it was a really timely reminder.
Yep.
And it was a very thoughtful question that he posed.
Mm-hmm.
So I always appreciate those, and like I said, since the last time we talked about it, a lot's changed.
Yeah. In so many ways in our world.
Yeah.
So
yeah, better to know than not know.
That's right. And once again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us at iso@apu.edu. Shawn or I will get back to you as quickly as we can. And with that, we will say have a great day.
All right. Bye.